Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ya Mehdi Madad. Good morning, good evening, good day to everyone watching and from their homes joining us today. My name is Ryan Morgan Christensen. I'm joined here again with Brother Sayyid Ali, Brother Sayyid Rida, Brother Ahmed to talk once again about the Sahabah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. This is the sixth installment of our series so far. It's not going to be the last episode that we do, but it will be the last episode in which we'll be just scratching the surface. Inshallah ta'ala, future episodes will be going into more detail about certain figures. So please like and share this video so everyone is aware what has been said already and what is to come, inshallah ta'ala. Today we'll be talking about the Banu Umayyah and the Umayyad dynasty, which was a successive line of caliphs which started with Muawiyah after the death of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and the treaty that was signed with his son and the fifth caliph Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Muawiyah took control of the Islamic empire, and thus began the infamous rule of the Banu Umayyah. We're going to turn now to Sayyid Rida. He's going to talk more about who the Banu Umayyah are and their relation to other tribes in the Islamic world at that time, or maybe even their relation to the Prophet and the Imams, peace be upon them. And Sayyid Rida.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everybody can hear me? Guys, I'm just going to screen share quickly. I'm just going to show you guys a quick document. Basically now, guys, I'm just going to explain through this chart. Then after that, I'm going to be going through a couple of narrations, what the Prophet said about Banu Umayyah and what the Quran said about a cursed family tree. Now, as we can see here, the Banu Umayyah and the Hashimiyah and the Hashimites, which is the Prophet's family, all came from what? The Quraysh tribe, from Abdul Manaf ibn Qusay and Atika bint Murah, and from there they had a couple of children. One of them is Hashim, which were Bani Hashim clans. The other one is Abd al-Shams, and from his son Umayyah bin Abd al-Shams, i.e. Bani Umayyah. Now we can see here from the Hashim you got Abdul Muttalib. And everybody knows who Abdul Muttalib is, you know what I mean? And you got Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib, Abi Talib ibn Abdul Muttalib, Hamza radiallahu anhu ibn Abdul Muttalib, the ones who fought in the one battles with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib. And from there you have Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib, the father of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And from there you have the Prophet's children, which is Fatima al-Zahra. And from Abi Talib alayhi salam, we have his son Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and you have him marrying the Prophet's daughter Fatima al-Zahra, and this is where the Imam alayhi salam came from. So you got Imam al-Hasan Mushtaba and Imam al-Hussein ibn Ali al-Shahid, and this is where from the Hashimites. And from amongst the family tree, as we said before, you got Umayyah ibn Abd al-Shams, and from there he had a son called Harb. And from Harb, we got Abu Sufyan. That's number one. You know, everybody knows Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan was one of the people who went against the Prophet when the Prophet first started spreading the message of Islam. And he didn't embrace Islam until the last second. But inshallah, in later shows, we'll go into more detail on that. And from there, we come to, as Ryan said, we come to Muawiyah. As we can say it is a fact that the Umayyad Caliphate started from Muawiyah. in particular Muawiyah, and then came Yazid, and after that, from Yazid, it came the descendants. Now, this is just a brief family tree. Okay, as I said before, you got the Umayyads from one side, and you got the Hashimiyun from the other side. Now, I'm just going to scroll down. I'm going to show you guys a couple of verses. Before I move on, Ryan, do you want to add anything on the tree? Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I do.
Uh,
Can I
Oh,
just
go ahead, say it.
point?
Go ahead, say
So,
it.
yeah, so obviously you've mentioned the Umayyad dynasty, and
Yes.
how, if we look at history, those who come from the Umayyad bloodline, we can see from the tree that Uthman is included within that tree. Technically speaking, he's not really included as the first Umayyad leader, or the first. Well, Uthman is not considered to be the first Umayyad
Yes.
king. Normally, they would include that to be Muawiyah. They wouldn't say Uthman, even though Uthman, technically speaking, he was from the Umayyad line,
It's
but
from that.
he never introduced the whole, concept of successorship should be hereditary. Because we noticed that when Muawiyah came into power, he introduced that. Prior to Muawiyah, when Usman was in charge, after Usman, it was Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam. The people came and literally begged him to take role. So after Imam Ali alayhi salam passing it to his son Imam Hassan alayhi salam, the leadership, as Ryan mentioned, I think you might have done as well, about how later the power was passed from Imam Hassan alayhi salam onto Muawiyah. But it's interesting how Muawiyah himself, when the original power of the Muslim state at the time was in Medina, I believe, and he switched the power from Medina into Damascus. So yeah, I just wanted to make that quick point about the whole Umayyad dynasty. And
Very cool. Very good, Said. Very good. Ryan, do you want to say anything as well? Or
Yeah, I just want to touch on something briefly. So one thing that I've often brought up a lot in our videos on this channel is how history repeats itself. And when looking at not only our texts, but also other religious texts, and seeing how there seems to be a pattern when it comes to the succession of prophets, or when certain events would happen and take place, and et cetera, et cetera. What's quite interesting, and has been reported, I believe, in the works from Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, where it says that Hashim ibn Abd Manaf and Abshams ibn Abd Manaf, they were supposed to be conjoined twins, and what happened was they struggled to be the firstborn from their mother's womb, and it was once born, it was said that Hashim was born with his toe embedded into the forehead of his brother Abshams. Now, whether this narration is necessarily authentic or not, it doesn't matter. It's been reported and referred to by numerous people, and I believe everyone in this group should have heard about that before. But it's quite interesting because if you actually look at Jewish history, you see a very similar concept happening a lot with their prophets, and you saw it with Nebi Yaqub in the Bible. It talks about Nebi Yaqub and Edom or Esau, and these two, their lineage, if you go read through the Jewish works, it's these two brothers and their descendants become bitter enemies all the way through Jewish history. Mm-hmm. And we see the same thing parallel here with the Bani Hashim and Bani Umayyah. It's very symbolic, such a birth, and the very similar birth happened with Yaqub and Esau, and it's quite poetic, and if true, it does show how history does repeat itself often.
Sorry, Ryan, didn't mean to interrupt you. It kind of reminds you of Abel and Cain, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It just constantly. It shows you that family doesn't mean anything unless you're both on the huck, or you're essentially doing good by each other. Yeah.
One example I can give, I don't know if you guys agree with the story of Prophet Adam alayhi salam and his son Qabil and Habil, and how one killed the other.
Yeah.
I know, you know, as you said, family doesn't really matter. Hence, one killed the other.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of examples we can give. There's a lot of examples we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so
go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so it's just quite impressive looking at that, and many poets have referred to this as being like the catalyst for what would end up being just an absurd amount of bloodshed. We would see that, you know, obviously Bani Abbas would also come from one line, and Bani Umayyah would come from another line, and they would end up having conflict later on as well. So it's quite a quite a remarkable thing to look at when just thinking about. But yeah, that's all I have to say on that point.
Just on a side note, though, a tradition comes to mind, and this tradition, I believe it's mentioned in Sahih Muslim, and as you can see from this chart, you could see Hashim, and then you could see Abu Muttalib, Abi Talib, and obviously Imam Ali alayhi salam's line. You see that line coming from Hashim, but because the Quraysh themselves, you have to remember, the Quraysh, you know, it consisted of many different tribes. Okay, Abd Shams, the Umayyad tribe.
The Abbasids came from them as well.
Yes, exactly, as Ryan mentioned. But yes, there's a hadith in Sahih Muslim that mentions that from all the tribes from Quraysh, the Bani Hashim were actually considered to be the most superior tribe from the Quraysh themselves. The same tribe that Ahlul Bayt from. The peace and blessings be upon them.
I think also too with the Quraysh, to my knowledge, they were more of a confederacy. So I think it's been argued before in the past that they all weren't necessarily from the same lineage, but they were more so tribes.
Yeah,
that they just came together in a form of mutual agreement to protect each other and etc. back in the day. But Allahu Alam, I'm not that knowledgeable in that part, so I won't say much further.
Let's just keep going now, guys.
Ahmed's been quiet. I think Ahmed might want to say something.
Yeah, I forgot he was even here. That's how quiet he is. Ahmed, do you want to say anything?
Well, the only thing I could add about what you said about history repeating itself is that it adds up to the hadith that says that we will follow the ones before us step by step, even if they walk into the hole of adab, which is like a lizard. So not only is history repeating itself, but the prophets foretold this. So those people, Al-Umayyah, should be seen the same way as the enemies of the prophets of the enemies of the prophets of the Jews. So this is because Al-Umayyah, when they preach that people should follow them, they use the fact that they are the cousins of the prophets as a way of like backing themselves and like selling themselves. So this proves that just like the way the prophets of the Jews had enemies who are their cousins, it's the same happening in Islam right now. And thank you.
Oh, cool. All right, guys, we're just going now to the Quranic verses about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned accursed trees, as in family trees. Now, and remember, i.e., O Muhammad, when we told you, indeed your Lord has encompassed the people, and we did not make it the sight which we showed you, except as a trial for the people, as was the accursed tree in the Quran, and we threaten them, but it increases them not except in great transgression. Chapter 17, verse 60 of the Quran. And now I'm just going to see the tafsir, the interpretation of this particular verse from Sheikh al-Suyuti and a couple of other ulama. Narrated from Ibn Jarir and from Sa'd ibn Sa'd, who said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saw in a dream that the children of so and so, and pay attention here, guys, on so and so, because we're going to go to another tafsir that mentions who this so-and-so is. So-and-so were jumping over his pulpit like monkeys. He became very sad about it, and he was never seen laughing again until he died. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, we granted the vision which we showed thee, but as a trial for men, yep. And this is also the tafsir of chapter 17, verse 60. And let's see what Ibn Hatim says. Now, Ibn Abi Hatim narrates from Ibn Amr that the Prophet ﷺ said, also the children of Al-Hakam, Ibn Abir Abdul As, over my pulpit in the form of monkeys. Now, here's a clear now. Now, this is where Ibn Abi Hatim shows us who the Prophet was actually talking about. Well, here's Suyuti just said so-and-so. We'll comment on that after. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed about it. We granted the vision which we showed thee, but as a trial for men. As also the cursed tree in the Holy Quran. Sayyid Ali, do you want to add something about the so-and-so part?
I don't know, Ryan.
Ryan? No,
Yeah, why? Why is it again seemingly an omission?
Like I remember Brother Ahmed in the last episode, how he showed, I think it was the last episode or the episode before, how he showed like how some hadith they have, there's one thing, but then when you go to the other, it rectifies it. Does that make sense? So this one's saying so-and-so, for people to be confused, for us not to assume anybody. But then when you get to a different tafsir, it shows the same procedure of the narration, the method of the narration, and then it shows who it's actually talking about.
It fills in the blanks. Do we know who the so-and-so were?
This is here. I saw the children of Al-Hakam ibn Abi al-As.
Oh, that's right, yes.
That's what we're talking about. You know what I mean?
It's censorship. I think we touched on it in the previous show as well.
Yeah.
In the religion, in the religious books, they actually taught to not discuss these type of issues, and these matters were even just supposed to be left for the scholars to discuss, and people told not to go into these things. So that censorship about so and so, there could be many factors. Perhaps the author of Dur al-Manthur, he may have hid that away. But having said that, he wouldn't mention their names then in the later traditions, So it's definitely not the author of the book.
It's not the author, but it's just the Suyuti. I'm pretty sure it's the Suyuti just himself.
It could be Suyuti. It could even be the narrators. Perhaps the narrators. Maybe they were from the Banu Umayyah themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Some sort of influence, or
I agree. Let me just go to the next one. And here, another from Ibn Abi Hatim, also narrates from Ya'la ibn Marah, who said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also Bani Umayyah over the pulpits of the earth. They will rule, and you will find them evil rulers. Now, here's another tafsir that shows us that Bani Umayyah are going to be evil rulers. That's the first one. And again, here from Ibn Mardaway narrates from Al-Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salatu wasalam that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam woke up once while he was very sad. He asked, what is wrong, O Messenger of Allah? He said, I saw Bani Umayyah in my dream that they are fighting over this pulpit of mine. They said, O Messenger of Allah, do not be sad. This dunya which they get, do not be sad. This is dunya. This is dunya which they get. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, we granted the vision which we showed thee, but this is trial from men. There's another tafsir from Ibn Mardaway. And this is a kind of lengthy narration, so I'm not going to mention the change. I'm just going to mention the last part, the one highlighted in red. This is from Ibn Mardaway, again narrated from Aisha, that she said to Marwan, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying about you and your father. This is Marwan as in the Umayyad. Father, you are the cursed family. You are a cursed tree in the Quran. This is from Tafsir al-Dur al-Manthur, volume 9, page 391. I'm just going to show the scans. Dur al-Manthur. Now, before I move on to the next part, guys, anybody want to comment on those narrations so far, the tafsir?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how you could see that, the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him, foresaw how the Umayyads were going to fight over his seat in terms of his not his leadership as such in Nabuwa, but when it comes to the issue of succession, these people were going to assert his leadership, and the Umayyads were actually a test for the people as well, as the verse mentions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested the people by the Umayyads as well. So
yeah, Ryan, Ahmad, so let's move on.
Well, while I believe you guys said enough about the predictions about Ibn Umayyah being bad and all that, I have a few books about this with hadiths about this, so I'm gonna mention what the Prophet said about Al Umayyah in a few books.
Yeah, let me read the next one, Ahmad, and I'll give it to you. I will give it to you after. All right.
Alrighty.
All right. Let's finish this part off.
All right.
All right. Then I'll give it to you guys. Okay.
Mhm.
Now here from Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he said that in a chapter of his book that the Prophet cursing Al-Hakim ibn Abi al-As and his sons and the Bani Umayyah. The first narration, pay attention when Marwan said the Ahl al-Bayt are cursed. So Al-Hussein got angry and said, are you saying the Ahl al-Bayt are cursed? By Allah, the Messenger of Allah cursed you while you were in your father's loins. And this is a Sahih narration as well. This is from Al-Matalib Al-Ulya, volume 18, page 257, hadith 4455. This is scans. باب لعن رسول الله الحكيم بن أبي العاص وبنيه وبني أمية. That's the hadith there. And even here we have something from Al-Dhahabi now. Al-Shabi said, I heard Ibn Zubair says that I swear by the Lord of the Kaaba that verily Al-Hakim ibn Al-As and his sons are cursed by the tongue of the Prophet. Al-Dhahabi says that the chain is authentic. And this is a Tariq al-Islam, in Tariq al-Islam, volume 2, page 200. And he's from Al-Hakim, from Abi Barza al-Islami, who said the people that Allah's apostle sallallahu alayhi wa sallam hated the most were the Bani Umayyah, Thaqif and Bani Umayyah, Thaqif and Bani Hanifa. And Al-Hakim said the hadith is sahih by the criteria of the Shaykhain. And source is Mustadrak al-Sahihain. Scan Mustadrak al-Sahihain, the hadith. All right, guys. We can say now, everyone, that from this ahadith we presented and from the tafsir of the Quran, that this family tree has always been cursed from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within the Quran and from the Prophet's Sunnah Nabawiyah, from his tongue. And that the Prophet interpreted this verse, and the ulama have agreed, most of the ulama have agreed upon this, that this cursed tree are the Bani Umayyah. Sayyid Ali, I'm going to give it to you now.
I think Ahmed wanted to.
Ahmed, oh, that's correct. Ahmed.
Yeah, hello. Yep.
Go ahead now. All right. It's on you now to show the narrations you wanted to show and to continue this discussion.
Okay, as I said, you guys said enough, but there is one string of hadith that you didn't mention. More than one, actually. There's like, this is the strongest one. It's one of the most repeated. So yeah, the narration is in المفهم لما أشكل من تلخيص صحيح مسلم by al-Qurtubi. And in it, he mentions a hadith that is recurring in almost all of the books of hadith with different wordings. Some of them mention Al-Umayyah, some of them just hint at them. Anyway, it says, this one, this version of the narration, or this copy, is from Abu Hurairah. So it says, وعن أبي هريرة قال النبي يهلك أمتي هذا الحي من قريش قالوا فما تأمرنا قال لو أن الناس اعتزلوهم. So Abu Hurairah said that the Prophet ﷺ said, my ummah will be killed or like will be led to halak.
No, Ahmed, we can only see half of the page. Can you move it across slightly?
Oh yeah,
Brilliant.
like this.
Brilliant, brilliant.
So the nation will be destroyed, like the ummah will be destroyed or will go to halak by this neighborhood from Quraysh. هذا الحي من Quraysh. And they asked him, what do you advise us to do towards them, or what do you command us to do towards them? He said, if people would leave them or abandon them. It exists in Musnad Ahmad and al-Bukhari and in Muslim. And it exists like with many other wordings such as يهلك أمتي هذا الحي من قريش, and البخاري هلاك أمتي على أيدي أغلمة من قريش. So a teenager from Quraysh, and الحي here means a tribe, so a tribe of Quraysh will destroy them. And he goes on and he says that it's Al Umayyah. He says that the reason the halak happens is because those people were teenagers and they hadn't tried politics, and that they aren't honest to the religion. وَلَيْسَ لَهُمْ مُحَافِظٌ عَلَى الدِّينِ. So they don't follow the religion much, and that they act according to their hawa and according to their teenage angst. يعني حدة الشباب. They're young, they're proud, and they walk around killing people. So yeah. And he said, Abu Huraira said, if you want, I can tell you they are the sons of Fulan and the sons of Fulan, so and so and so and so. But لكنه سكت عن يقينهم مخافة ما يطرأ من ذلك من مفاسد. So he didn't mention the names because he was afraid of being harmed. And then he goes on and saying why he believes that they are Yazid bin Muawiyah and Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, who are Al Umayyah, but this is not the hadith. This is the opinion of Al-Qurtubi. And thank you.
Oh, cool. Said Ali, you want to continue as well? You want to add to that, or just your end?
Sorry, my camera's really light up. Let me just pull this out for you guys. You can see me now. So yeah, coming back to what Ahmed mentioned in terms of the Umayyads and how they've been prophesized according to the holy verses of the Holy Quran, the Hadith of the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him. And it's interesting, Ahmed mentioned Abu Huraira, and if I recall, even under the Umayyad rule, the Sahabah, like Abu Huraira, suffered. I believe there's a tradition in Sahih Bukhari, in the chapter, in the book of prayers, and there was a companion who prayed behind an individual, and I think he read like 22 takbirs or something ridiculous like this in his salah. So they came to Abu Huraira and asking him how the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him, would pray salah, and whether or not this many takbirs were mentioned. And Abu Huraira said that I think Abu Huraira mentioned it, or the individual mentioned it, but I think it was Abu Huraira. Abu Huraira goes, whoever you prayed salah behind must have been a crazy person. This is not the correct way. So you see numerous instances that even, with the Umayyad rule, be it through Uthman or be it through Muayyah, it was considered to be. Oh, now your microphone is on. You need to mute your microphone. Oh, brilliant.
Yep.
So, in terms of the Umayyad rule, obviously, Uthman was from the Banu Umayyah, even though technically speaking, he was not considered to be the first Umayyad leader. Muayyah was considered to be the first Umayyad king. I have a book here, actually. It's called The Banu Umayyah and the First Phase. And the author, as you can see, is Ibn Kathir. And it's the abbreviated version from the book Al-Badaya wal-Nihaya, probably backwards on the screen. A very interesting book, actually. It talks about the Umayyad rules. It talks about the Umayyad Khalifas, what they were like. It starts with Muayyah, and in the first chapter, it actually quite clearly states, the author mentions at page number 17, he said, this book, they left out all the weak traditions, and we summarized, they stuck with those traditions which were generally considered to be most authentic. And if you go through this book, I mean, these are just some of the notes I put in there. but you can see that you can actually see what the Umayyad kings were like, and obviously how Muawiyah was like, and Yazid and so forth. Obviously, we're going to go into that at a later time. If you just bear with me now, I'm just going to quickly bring up a document. It was important that we discuss who the Umayyads were because, you know, we've not even started on the topic of Muawiyah yet. We're just introducing his background.
Can I just interject quickly about regarding Banu Umayyah? There was I was watching I was listening to a lecture by Sunni Maliki scholar Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, and he was talking about you know, whether one should pray qadl or sadl, and that's regarding like the hands being down, which is sadl, or qadl, which is where the arms are folded, which you'll find most Sunnis doing. And he said that he found it very interesting that the Malikis prayed like the Ahl Bayt, alayhim assalam. And you'll find that the non-Sunni schools that pray sadl, such as the Twelvers, which is, you know, obviously most of the boys on this channel, and the Khawarij, like if you find, or similar groups like them, like the Ibadis of Oman today, they all pray with their hands to the side. And what Sheikh Hamza Yusuf was saying is that during a certain time of Bani Umayyah, they used to force people to pray with their arms folded.
Wow.
And yeah, and so what would happen is the most staunch opponents of them would keep their hands down in protest. So
there's many. I mean, within the 6 books, you'd find many things that the Umayyads did in regards to the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, which they changed. You know, there's the famous hadith from Ibn Abbas mentioned in Sunan Nasai, which says that Ibn Abbas was on Hajj, and the people stopped doing I think it was the Talibiyah, where they say Allahumma labbaik, and he couldn't hear it. So he asked somebody, and he said, you know, what's going on? Why are they not saying Allahumma labbaik? What's going on? So basically, Ibn Abbas says, he actually says in this tradition that they did so out of the fear of Muawiyah, because these people, they had hatred, bughs, that I think the hadith actually mentioned, bughs, that hatred towards Imam Ali Islam, and this is the reason why they even stopped saying Allahumma labbaik, you know, while they were Hajj. So yeah, there's many things that the Umayyads did, which even clashed with the practices of some of the Sahabah, which we even disagree on, you know?
Yeah, of course. There's also that. Oh wait, you gotta mute me for a sec. So there's also that Sunni scholar I've heard recently too, by the name of Atabek. I believe he's based in the UK at the moment. I'm not sure where he's based, but he also had a lecture talking about his view on, you know, the succession of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, where he felt it should have gone based on his understanding of text and stuff like that. And I think any Sunni that's watching our show should at least go check out what this other Sunni has to say. You know what I mean? You don't have to like, firstly, you don't have to like these people of Bani Umayyah to be a Sunni. I think we need to get that established. That many people will come into this with cultural backgrounds of just, they grew up believing a certain thing, like, oh, this person was this, so we have to believe this. You know what I mean? Not necessarily. There's always alternatives. And once you start to see that the alternatives are there, right, it opens up a whole new world for you to think, a whole new world of rationalizing history. And you'll find that, you know, potentially a lot of the things that you once believed may not necessarily add up. So I do recommend, like, listening to, you know, guys like Atabek and Hamza Yusuf, and even there's an English professor he's based in the UK. He talked about, you know, the Ahl Bayt in regards to tariqas and stuff like that. You know, I don't want to drift too much from the topic, but if you listen to them and their opinions on Bani Umayyah, I think you'll get away from this. If you are of that inclination towards this more Nasibi, pro Bani Umayyah kind of thing, then you'll, inshallah ta'ala, be led towards a more rational way of thinking.
I just want to back you up on one thing, and even here in in Shaya and stuff, I've met a couple of brothers who they have this tariqah, same thing. They come from the Sufi brothers. They have this tariqah of mainly in Turkey, but you know what I mean. They also have the same agreement as we do that Ahl al-Bayt are number one priority, and Bani Umayyah should be rejected. You know what I mean? Like backing up from your side, backing up what you're saying, that you don't have to be. You can still be a Sunni, i.e., a Sunni, if you hate Bani Umayyah. You know what I mean? You don't have to love it. There's no obligation on that in any shape or form. Yeah. And that's all I had to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Ahmed.
So since you spoke about how being a Sunni shouldn't necessarily mean loving Al Umayyah, I have Al-Qurtubi's interpretation of a hadith.
Okay.
And in the hadith, he attacks Al Umayyah as أئمة يدعون إلى النار, imams who lead to hell. So, actually, this hadith is like very visible among many anti-Umayyad scholars through the years. And Al-Qurtubi is not the only one who said this.
Ahmed, do you have the book? Do you have the book?
Yes, I do.
You
share it, please.
The book you showed earlier from Asqalani. That chapter was in.
So you see me?
Yes, you're right.
Oh, no, you don't. No, you only hear, you don't see. Wait.
Yes,
I'm on.
Yeah, you're on.
So this is in another volume of Al-Mufhim by Al-Qurtubi. This is volume 4. And in it, like he's interpreting a hadith in which he says, where is the hadith? Yeah. Wait. The hadith says, عن حذيفة بن اليمان, the people used to ask the prophets about good and about evil, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, O Prophet of God, we used to be in Jahiliyyah and evil. Then this good came to us. So will evil come after this good? The Prophet said, yes. I replied, will after the evil good come back? He said, yes, but it will be mixed with smoke. So it will not be fully good. And he asked, what will be the smoke? He replied, people who follow a sunnah other than mine and follow huda other than mine, and people تعرف منهم وتنكر. So some of the things you can take from them, some of the things you can't. And then he said, after the good will be evil again? He replied, yes, there will be du'at ala abwab jahannam. So like people who invite others to hell. And whoever answers them will be thrown into it. And he replied, describe them for us. The Prophet said, they are people من جلدتنا ويتكلمون بألسنتنا. They are from our tribe, they are from like our race, and they speak like us. And I said, what should I do? Wow.
Right.
That hurt my ear. Anyway. So what's going on?
Okay. Ryan's microphone here. Go ahead, Ahmed.
Yeah, it's fine. So what should I do if I live through this? إن أدركني ذلك. He replied, you stick to the Muslims and their Imam. I said, what if there is no Imam? He replied, avoid all of the sects, فاعتزل تلك الفرق كلها, even if you have to bite on a tree until you die while doing that. So he gives his interpretation of this, like it's a very long interpretation. But like I'll read a certain part of it.
Ahmed, quickly. What was the word used for sex in that hadith?
الفرق. Yeah.
Firqa. Okay.
So Oh, and here is another hadith. He says, after me there will be amirs يكون بعدي أمراء قلوبهم قلوب الشياطين في جثمان الإنس. Their hearts will be the hearts of devils in the body of humans. And anyway, like, what is what I wanted to say?
The tafsir of the hadith, bro.
Yeah, but like it's a very long tafsir. So wait. Oh, okay. He says many things, including that the time of Muawiyah is the smoke, and that everyone hated, like اجتمع الناس عليه كره ذلك كثير من الناس بقلوبهم. Even though people followed him, a lot of them hated him in their hearts, and they continued to hate him, and they were too afraid to oppose him, and they didn't show it in the lifetime of Yazid, but many people did. So we will continue until, and he says that this is the meaning. People will know them, but they will hide it, like they will not fight them for it.
Which
so yeah,
this
is what I wanted.
So Ahmed, is this the statement
Yes.
of the author?
Scholar.
The author of this book? Whose statement is this?
Qurtubi.
Qurtubi.
It's by Al-Hafidh al-Qurtubi.
Okay. So they can't do I mean, they can't. This is if they're going to curse anyone, they should curse Qurtubi, because Qurtubi, you could see, is quite vicious when it comes to Muawiyah.
Yeah. So anyway, he says the third evil is the Khilafah of Yazid, because Yazid and most of his wilat, most of his appointed leaders of regions, and the Khulafa of Banu Umayyah after them, يصدق عليهم, like it works on them, the saying دعاة على أبواب جهنم, whoever answers them will be thrown into it. That is because they didn't act correctly. لم يسيروا بالسواء ولا عدلوا في القضاء. Their courts weren't just. And reading about them and looking at their seerah will prove that, except for the lifetime of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, because he was just, but it was too short, so it doesn't work. Like it isn't included in that time. And yeah, that is what I wanted to say. And he goes on, like describing with much more detail how are those people evil, but it goes way too long. Like he attacks each Umayyi Khalifa one after one, Marwan, all of them. And thank you.
Great. You know what? That kind of ties on to what I was going to present. So I'm going to share a document right now on my screen. This is from Ibn Kathir's book, Badaya wa Nihaya, and this is in volume 17, page number 375. So, as we know, Ibn Kathir, famous scholar, especially in the Salafi circle, a very respected individual, and he admits, sorry, somebody's microphone is on.
Yeah, go ahead, Said. Sorry, I'm turning it off now.
Okay, great. So Ibn Kathir mentions, he says, the Khalifas from Banu Umayyah were like this. Their number was like that of the number of the Rafidah, meaning obviously the Shias, the followers of the 12 Imams, alayhi salam, we have 12 Imams, and likewise the Umayyads, they had a similar number. And it says, but the time was incomplete from a fixed 100 years. All of them, meaning all the Banu Umayyah, were Nasbis. So we mentioned the term Nasbi in the previous show, and we showed how numerous scholars said that a Nasbi were those individuals who made the hatred of Imam Ali alayhi salam as an integral part of the religion. Okay, just like today's Nasbis, who've made the Umayyads to be an integral part of their religion, that when it comes to people like Muawiyah, who, by the way, who hasn't been excluded from the list of Nasbis, they revere these people. So, as you can see, Ibn Kathir quite mentioned, he mentions without any exception, unless it's Umar Abdul Aziz. He gives an exception. He says, except Umar Abdul Aziz. And then he mentions Muawiyah, then his son Yazid, then his grandson Muawiyah, and so forth, until Marwan, the last of them, Marwan the donkey with curly hair, and he was the last of them. That's enough said about them. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's not enough said about them today. Obviously we can go into a whole series in terms of who the Umayyad leaders were. So this was from Al-Bidayah wal-Nihaya, the front book, the cover of the book, the page. Al-Dhahabi, in his book Siyar al-Alam al-Nubla, volume 3, page 128, he says Muawiyah had him a huge number of people who loved him and who went to extreme lengths in their views of him and who placed him above Ali alayhi salam. It was either because he ruled them with honor, clemency and generosity, or because they were born in Syria upon the love of him, and they raised their children upon the love of Muawiyah. And Al-Dhahabi mentions further, he says, among them was, as in among the supporters of Muawiyah, were a small group of companions, the Sahabah, and lots of Tabi'een and people of merit. They fought on his side against the people of Iraq, meaning the people of Imam alayhi salam, and they were raid upon Nasib, and they were Nasbis, they were Nawasib. I don't know if the brothers want to add anything to that point about Muawiyah being a Nasbi, and with the exception of Umar Abdul Aziz, he was the only one who wasn't really considered to be a Nasbi individual.
No, I think I'd like to save it for the next episode.
Okay.
Because we're
I
going.
reckon that's the best option. I reckon that's the best thing. The reason being because on next episode we'll dissect Muawiyah as an individual by himself. Instead of the whole Bani Umayyah that we're doing now, we're just giving a brief who are Bani Umayyads.
Sure.
Next episode, we'll just dissect them.
Sure.
I think, and also, I don't want to get the brothers carried away because once one of us starts on Muawiyah, I don't.
I mean, the thing is, Muawiyah's whole ancestry in terms of even who his father is, they associate him with Abu Sufyan. So even that's a big debate because, you know, in the times of Jahiliyyah, well, we'll come to that at some other shows, but yeah, you know, even who his father was, he was attributed to the son of being Abu Sufyan, but yeah, so I'm going to continue with that same document. I want to show you some other things about the hardship that, the Ahlul Bayt suffered during the Umayyad rule. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So Al-Dhahabi mentions that there was a narrator by the name, I believe his name was Ulay ibn Rabah. Dhahabi says he's trustworthy Imam. So this book, Siyar al-Alam Nubla, was like a biography of narrators, individuals throughout history. And when it comes to authenticating certain hadith, those who specialize in the science of authenticating reports and weakening them, they would refer to this book. It's a very it's a well-known book within the Sunni whole system of science of hadith. So this is about a narrator, a person number 35 called Ulay ibn Rabah, and Dhahabi says he's the trustworthy Imam. Abu Musa al-Lakhmi al-Misr. He has narrations from Amr ibn As, Uqba ibn Amar, and so forth. And it says, and he was from the greatest scholars of the Tabi'i. But this is the interesting part about this individual. Abu Abdul Rahman al-Bukri said, whenever the Banu Umayyah would hear that a newborn was named Ali, they would kill him. So when this reached Rabah, Ulay's father, he changed his son's name from Ali to Ulay or Ulay. So you could see that, even being named, Hassan or Hussein, or being named from the Ahlul Bayt during the times of the Umayyad rule, people used to adopt taqiyya. One of the arguments people always like to bring up, oh yeah, but why did the Ahlul Bayt name the children Abu Bakr, Usman, Aisha, and so forth? Well, now you can see why, what the reason was. Because at that time they were suffering a lot of hardship. And it was, even your own imams. Sorry, whose microphone keeps, can you brothers keep an eye on the mic? It's quite annoying. Brilliant. Okay. So as you can see, even the imams of the Sunni madhahib, they had to change their names. They changed their names from Ali to Lay. So, it shouldn't come as a surprise that when we hear...
Say, can I just add something as well? Once I was watching this lecture from one of a scholar on the minbar from our side. He mentioned that the reason why most of the imams, if you've realized, they're named Ali. So a bit of them were named Ali. If you're going to go Ali ibn Musarada, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali al-Hadi, and you've got Muhammad al-Baqir, and you know what I say, like, and mainly Ahl al-Bayt names from Amir, the first three, as in Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hasan, and Imam al-Hussein. If they circulate around those names, it's for us to keep those names and that lineage going, for the memory not to die out. And as you showed now, that anybody who was named Ali, he was killed. And it kind of intertwines, if that makes sense, bro. It intertwines on that issue, that the reason why also the Imam, some were named Ali and Muhammad and Hassan, is for those names not to die out, like to keep on going.
Yeah, definitely, of course. We can do a whole show on the whole concept about keeping names and stuff. But the point I was trying to make was that
how they treat the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam, 100%.
Trevor, can you mute your microphone? I just want to bring the document up again. So
right.
From the book Shir al-Alam, volume 5, page 101, person number 35, and you could see his name, Ulay. So yeah, you can see that this individual, this Imam, respected individual and Hadith narrator, his father changed his name. Okay, this is another tradition from al-Dhahabi. I'm not going to mention the chain, but it's about the biography of Abu Hassan al-Madani, and it says al-Madani narrated that he entered upon Mamun, and he mentioned to him hadith about Ali. So Mamun cursed the Banu Umayyah. Okay, sorry, give me a second. Bring the screen up larger. So it says he cursed Banu Umayyah. Then I al-Madani said to Mamun bin Abdullah al-Ansari, said, I was in Syria. Okay, Abdullah al-Ansari said, I was in Syria and I never heard the names of Ali and Hassan. Okay, and rather what I heard was Muawiyah, Yazid, and Walid. Kind of similar to what you kind of hear today in a lot of those countries which the Shias of Ahl al-Bayt are really oppressed. You'll see that even keeping the names Ali Hassan, there's a lot of reluctance to keep the names. You'll hear the names Muawiyah, Yazid, Walid. Even Walid till today is a very common name, and this is a custom from the people of Sham. Nevertheless, he says, then I went past a man who was standing at the door and who said, give him water, O Hassan. I said, you named your son Hassan? So, this individual, Al-Madani, when he heard this man naming his son Hassan, he became surprised. And he said, he replied, my children are named as Hassan and Hussein and Jafar, because the people of Syria named their children after the names of Khalifas of Allah, and then the man cursed his son. Thus I thought you were the best among the people of Syria, but now I realized that there will be nobody worse than you in hellfire. So Mamun said, don't bother, that is why Allah has cursed those that are alive and dead. By this he means the Nawasib. So the point here is that there was an individual called Al-Madani who was traveling. He went into Sham. He hardly heard the names of Ali and Hassan and Hussein, etc., etc. And he came across an individual who named his son Hassan. So he asked him, he said, why do you name your son Hassan? And he goes, look, we keep these names. But you could see the reason why he actually kept these names was as a reminder to curse the Ahlul Bayt, so to say. Yeah. So he was cursing the Ahlul Bayt. He was keeping these names for his own son as a reminder to curse the Holy Prophet's family, may peace and blessings be upon him. So yeah, these are the type of sufferings that, the hardships that those who were Shias of Ali or from the progeny of the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him, they went under, a great deal of hardship, even to the extent they couldn't even keep, they couldn't even keep, they couldn't keep names after the holy household of the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him. That's the only thing I wanted to share with you guys. I don't know if you want to add anything to that or.
No, alhamdulillah, like you showed everything quite clearly on how the Nasab happened from the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam, and same way how Brother Ahmed also showed the difference of the Sunni scholars on the Bani Umayyah. Yeah, but I got nothing else to add, to be honest. Ryan, Ahmed.
Well, I can add one thing concerning the ones who curse Imam Ali alayhi salam and hate Imam Ali. Like, this is a very, very recurring issue. No sane historian would ever dispute it. Like almost everyone who mentioned the culture during the time of Bani Umayyah, or the members of the time of Bani Umayyah, what was said into it, they'll agree that Imam Ali alayhi salam used to be cursed on them, and that there are people who were killed for refusing to kill him. But just for the sake of it, let's bring up one narration. Did you guys mention a narration in which he is cursed on the member, or do I have to do it? I forgot. I'll just mention it.
Yeah, Phil, I think you should mention it, Ahmed.
Mention it, Ahmed.
Okay. So, this is the same man, Al-Qurtubi. He said a lot of stuff, mashallah. Oh, why isn't it showing? What's happening now? Oh, okay. So, yeah. Why isn't it? Okay. So, the same book by Al-Qurtubi. And he talks about cursing Imam Ali alayhi salam on the member. He says, as of Marwan and the rest of Al-Umayyah, they used to start their speeches, like Jum'ah speeches, by insulting Ali, karamallahu wajhahu alayhi salam. And they make people hear that. And people, when they pray with them and leave before they listen to the speeches, because of that, because they don't want to hear Imam Ali alayhi salam being cursed. When Marwan saw that, and also the rest of Al-Umayyah, they started giving the speech before the prayer so that people have to listen even though they hate it. And then he continues saying that the right way to do it is for the speech to be before, the prayer to be before the speech. So like Al-Umayyah invented a whole new kind of prayer just so that they make people curse Imam Ali alayhi salam.
I think we need to do a whole, sorry Ahmed, I think we need to do a whole series on this topic, on the cursing of Islam.
Maybe. Well, we can do a series out of the topic, because I'm sure like there are dozens upon dozens of narrations in which Imam Ali alayhi salam is cursed and insulted, and have even his Islam questioned on the minbar. Like they would call him a kafir on the minbar. Where are the guys who are against insulting the Sahaba from that? And anyway, this book also contains other narrations about cursing Imam Ali, but I guess like anyone with even like remote knowledge would have heard of this already. Like I'm only saying it for the sake of saying it. So another thing, I wanted to say this in the beginning because it's such a nice poem, but I didn't have the time to say it. This is a poem by Ibn Kathir in Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya. And it's like those series of poems are about the Islamic nations. He mentions the Fatimis here, he mentions the Abbasis, he mentions everyone. So this is the poem about Banu Umayyah. It starts like after that Al Umayyah came, and there was Muawiyah and Yazid and blah blah blah, a very long poem. But the line I want to share is وكلهم قد كان ناصبية إلا الإمام عمر التقية. So all of them were Nasibis. All of the rulers of Bani Umayyah, starting from Muawiyah all the way up to the last one, were Nasibis, except Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. And it goes on like insulting Al Umayyah one by one. This guy is awesome. He called Marwan the donkey. Oh, you already called him the donkey, Sayyid. Yeah, my job is done here.
That's fine. You can repeat him. You can repeat the word donkey. The last one was a donkey, as you can see. It says
yeah.
It actually says Khamar in Arabic as well.
Ahmar,
yeah, Ahmar. Well, donkey sounds funnier. Like Ahmar is an insult, but donkey is like a small funny thing. So anyway, and he insults Al Umayyah one by one. Like he says that Hisham was a traitor. He says that Al-Walid bin Yazid was a fasiq. And he says that Yazid bin Al-Walid was perfect. So yeah, there is one perfect guy according to this one, but they were all Nasibis. That's the thing you should focus on. Nobody's perfect.
The 12 Imams for some of our brothers, they consider these individuals.
Yeah, thank you.
Ryan, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm just getting a bit of lag on my end, I think.
What happened?
I think today's topic, it was just about history, to be honest with you. We've not really even got to the crux of the
Crux of the matter. No, alhamdulillah, it was a good topic. But it's very important to clarify for him to know what's the origins of these individuals that used to hate Muhammad alayhi salam. You know what I mean? And like we've showed the family tree, we've showed the narration, the tafsir, we've showed from your end, Ahmad showed from his end. You know what I mean? Ryan also gave a couple of opinions. Alhamdulillah, it was really good. Alhamdulillah, was really good.
Yes. Agreed.
I think we should wrap it up for today's show, inshallah. And
Yeah, inshallah.
we'll carry on with Muawiyah perhaps in the next episode.
Inshallah. Do you want to open up for the public after Said Ali or not today?
No, I think we'll let the brothers rest. Mashallah,
Yes.
on the viewers. So next week, it's up to you guys. I mean, I don't mind opening up to the public.
Ryan,
Yeah,
what you
open it up. What else we got to do?
All right. When Sheikh Ryan says we must open up to the public, that means we must. What I will do, inshallah, for the viewers is I'm going to share the link in the video description.
So the show is over now?
The
Yes.
show is over when I'm Assalamu alaikum, and then you guys will, if you want to join, the link's at the bottom. It's in the comment section of the YouTube page. Assalamu alaikum.